It's a reading series where one invited reader invites a reader of their choice, and that reader invites another reader who invites another reader. So for today's event, I invited Jade, who invited Tony, who invited Ahry, who invited Stine. So something I wanted to do when I came up with this concept for this reading series is to really spotlight these writers' friendships with each other. So instead of reading out official bios, which you can find on our promotional graphics, I asked the readers to write a short introduction for the person they invited. So our first reader is Jade Song, and since I invited Jade, I wrote an introduction for her. So Jade wrote one of my favorite short stories of all time, which was published in a magazine that I edit for, and it's how we first got to know each other. I remember gushing about that story to many friends, and when we met briefly in Singapore back in 2022, I remember thinking she was really cool and that I really wanted to be friends. A year later, I moved to New York City, and Jade reached out and checked in on me. Over the years, Jade has cooked for me in her beautiful apartment and lent me countless books that I have yet to return. And from Jade, I learned how to hold my friends close and how to translate this fierce commitment to friendship to my writing as well. Please welcome Jade Song.
Thank you, Letitia, for a very sweet introduction and for hosting tonight. And thanks for Accent Sisters for hosting, and for all of you for coming tonight. Is there a way to phrase this out? Oh, can you hear me? Okay. So I'm going to be reading two things. The first one is from my book that comes out next year. It's my second one. It's called I Love You, Don't Die. And then the second piece that I'll be reading, I will be inviting a special guest, which I felt fit Letitia's theme. So this book is about my love for my friends. It's about my love for the city. It's really about, I wrote it from this place of being really afraid of death, not of my own, but of my loved ones. And writing the book gave me a lot of catharsis in trying to figure that out. So I'll be reading the interlude. The book is split into two parts, and the interlude separates them. So I'll be reading a few paragraphs from that. Time passes, sleep, wake, work, fuck, die. Maybe, if lucky, love. Love in restaurants, parks, apartments, bars, cafes, shelters, kitchens, museums, galleries, theaters, bookstores, libraries, walking sidewalks, riding trains, hailing cabs to reach these places where we might find love. People to love. We think love will fulfill our lives, lengthen them, and maybe love will, but maybe love won't. We try and try and try again, losing meaning through repetition. Different curation, but same museums. Different riders, but same subway trains. Same daily bullshit, same cops bullying the churro lady, same trash piling up on the tracks. Different meals, but same restaurants. Different cafes, but same blocks. Blame, gentrification. Rent going up, real estate lines drawn. Neighbors dying, neighbors moving out, temporary neighbors moving in for a summer internship, neighbors evicted. Cycle of the city until cut short by climate change, but don't worry, the city is resilient. The city will bounce back. Nevertheless, maybe during our lifetime or during Vicky's lifetime, the city will flood, burn, raise into a developer's wet dream. Thanks in Starbucks and chain fast food. It won't be the same city, like the neighbors always changing into different faces, same expressions. Happy, sad, tired, joyful, joy. There is joy because there is love despite the disasters. Wildfire haze, rightful protest taking over the streets. Mass death, death, always death, and yet, I can't live without you, so you can't die, thanks Vicky when she looks at Jen, when she looks at Angela. Vicky would punch death in the face if she could, rip his black cloak to shreds. But Vicky isn't stupid. She's deranged, but she's not stupid. She knows death will come eventually, for her and for everyone she loves. Hasn't she been dreaming about death ever since she'd been young? Death's endless pursuit, her exhausted legs running away from his jaws. So she wakes up as much as she can, so she can embrace another day of living, even if no matter how much she wakes up, she'll still die in the end. Yes, the end will come. She will die. The people she loves will die. They'll die someday, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, maybe in 50, if she's lucky to have that much time, but she's been lucky to love in her own way. So maybe she'll be lucky enough that the love will last for her lifetime. The life that she spends dining with her best friend and waking up with Kevin and Angela, chugging coffee and opening the laptop and watching some television and walking around the city, ignoring the fake monks who want to give her wooden bracelets and dropping coins in the open case of the Serenader, and cursing the MTA when the train is late. Stand clear of the closing door, showtime. Sometimes she imagines her life moving like the view out the window on the 2-3 Express from 42nd to 72nd, flashing by indistinct. Gone by so quickly like the summer and like her youth. Vicky has so much of life left and yet so little. At least she has Jen and Angela and Kevin and Ahry. Together they ignore time's inevitability. Let the dead fall where it may, too busy to pay attention to nothingness because there are cakes to eat and songs to sing and people to love. For when the world ends, love is what will linger on. Thank you. So I have a very dear friend here in the audience. She is an amazing writer as well. And recently there was a friendship scene open call at You and Me Books, and we decided to submit something, and so we wrote a poem together. So I felt like inviting her up here to read it with me would be really fun. So please welcome Mita.
Hello.
So we each wrote a line in this poem, and we will alternate reading our parts.
I guess a lot of our friendship is based on watching horror movies together. So it's about the horror of life and working, and then a choice of friendship. Act 1, the horror. Loose flesh under your eyes, a successful day at work.
Limping home, emitting sighs, crowded Q train, empty apartment.
From the floor, the spirits rise. Turn the mirror from face to picture.
Open your mouth of abundance, search for something to nurture.
Act 2, the growth. It feels like she came from within, this bosom buddy with glistening eyes.
Her flesh of your flesh of her flesh, such kin.
You take turns feeding each other, hand over fist, hair over skin.
Until the merge, the melting, the kind wanted comrade's mother.
Act 3, the ecstasy. The mind, the meld, knowing one another so intimately.
Against monotony, isolation, antipathy, we rebel.
Into the office we marched arm in arm in arm to show our bond we were compelled.
Linked by bracelet, our days become charms. Thank you. And now I will introduce the person I invited. I did not write a paragraph. I'm sorry, I actually forgot to do that. But my forgetfulness is not representative of how much he means to me. We met at Vermont Studio Center in January, of this year, and if I'm going to be totally honest, a lot of the cohort was not my type of person, so finding Tony was like a very much fall in what was a very cold and snowy 3 weeks. And he is just so brilliant and he's so generous. Like you can walk up to his studio at 11 p.m. like I did and like barge in asking all of these like Chinese literature questions and he will answer them right away. He's very, very generous with his time, with his knowledge, and he's a very inquisitive person and I really admire some of the insights that he's shared with me over these months that we've known each other. So please welcome Tony.
is Tony. I'm a Canadian-based translator from Chinese to English. I'll be reading an excerpt from my ongoing translation project, 西北语 by Taiwanese novelist Tong Wei. The title of the excerpt is Hometown, and it is loosely based on the island of Mazu, Taiwan's frontier island near China's coastline that remained until martial law in 1992. Hometown. Perhaps sometime in the distant past, she had also wondered whether it would be possible to raise a child in the village and, if it wasn't too much to ask, that they grow up healthy and strong. Back then, the old three-wing house in the village, just like her home in Dog Hill, sheltered myriad forms of life. Bats hanging upside down beneath the attic roof, a family of rats settled inside the wooden panels of the kitchen cabinets, wasps and crickets, ants and frogs, earthworms and many other species, too many to be enumerated. On winter nights, all that were mute would sing, their voices blending into a low hum. When the morning star rose, she would hear her get up and enter the kitchen, her soft footsteps merge with the hum. She privately called her mother. She wanted to closely observe what mother did in the span of a day, and how she managed to, sunrise after sunset, live in the village for her entire life. In the kitchen, mother boiled hot water in the kettle and filtered through a piece of cheesecloth before pouring it into the thermos for mother's husband, Mr. Lee. The porridge had been cooked and the vegetables had been stir-fried. A colander was turned upside down on the kitchen floor, next to which mother squatted, spraying detergent through the holes. "What's going on?" she asked, approaching mother. "I'm trying to kill a cockroach. They run so fast," said mother. She squatted down next to mother, watching the cockroach sprint along the rim of the colander like an athlete. She grabbed a tablespoon and struck the colander, hoping that would help mother attack the cockroach with more precision. But the pest refused to surrender. She suggested they douse it with hot water. Mother agreed, pouring 2 bowls of water into the pot. Setting the pot on the stove, mother chuckled and said, "Look at how little we have to do. The 2 of us together trying to kill 1 cockroach." The water boiled, mother lifted the pot with the kitchen towels and squatted next to the colander. "Where is it?" "Over there." Mother poured the hot water through the holes on one side of the colander, but the cockroach had escaped to the opposite side. She followed the insect and poured more water into the colander, only for it to flee again. "We're playing hide and seek," mother said, "but I'm a little lightheaded." "Let me handle it." She took over the pot, splashed the remaining water on the floor, pushed the colander into the steaming puddle, and struck the cockroach clinging onto the colander with a tablespoon. The cockroach fell into the hot water, convulsed, and turned still. "Is it dead?" mother asked. "It's dead. It's curdled." "Great." The morning was quiet. She turned and looked at mother, who responded with a smile, a white smile that made her face glow. Mother stroked the tip of her hair and said, "Your hair's so dark." "Is it so? Did you have a good night of sleep?" "Yes, I did." "If you can't sleep well, cut an onion in half and put it right next to your pillow." "I will." In the morning, mother sat before the sewing machine, her foot on the pedal as she reworked Mr. Lee's clothes. Mr. Lee had aged, and his body had shrunk. Mother gathered the clothes he wore during outings and tailored them for a better fit, until the shirts and pants had come to resemble oversized children's clothes, and his bygone years had been resewn beneath the cotton threads stitch by stitch. She observed mother and asked, "How did you 2 meet each other?" "Well, he was working the tea farm in the mountains, and when I was taking a walk, I saw him hiding in a pothole, wailing. I gave him a hand and helped him get out," mother said. "A while later, he came to my house carrying a hoe and his luggage over his shoulder. He found my father and offered his labor for a farm, and he said he'd marry into my family. My father told him to live in our old storage shed, and eventually I took him in as my husband." "Oh," she said. It took her some time to become accustomed to the way mother spoke. The stories were endless, but her words were scarce. Mother was practicing the piano. She sat upright on her chair, pressing imaginary keys. Mother said that her old piano had rotted in the village's humid weather. She wanted mother to hum the melody out loud. Mother said she would be too embarrassed, and she simply wanted to play for herself. Mother asked her who else was in her family. She answered that her family were pirates who survived by robbing passing ships on the sea. 4 mariners' heads hung on the wall of the main room in their stone abode in Dog Hill. These heads were embalmed, which preserved the mariners' expressions during their final moments, Her father had named them joy, anger, grief, and relief. Since her childhood, whenever she made a mistake or received a compliment, or during festive times when there were no chips to rob, her father always made her kneel before the wall and face the mirrors, until all her joy and anger and grief and relief were cleansed. Mother listened to her story and chuckled. Her stories always made Mother laugh. She walked to the front door of their house and gazed at the languid village. Now I understand, she thought. Taking a stroll, walking a dog, going to a night market. She knew the meaning of all these phrases, but before leaving Dog Hill, she had never experienced them in many things that, for others, were everyday activities. She had made Mother laugh, which was also pleasant for her. This is what Mother is supposed to be like, she thought. And this similarly had been foreign knowledge for her until after she departed Dog Hill. Everyone was home. Mother was playing the piano. Mr. Lee was working on the farm. Her husband, Shifengyan, was on vacation in the library, and her son, Shifeng, was asleep and swallowed. Perhaps it was only she, the stranger, who had fathomed deep in her heart. If this manifested a family reunion, then nothing in this world could be deemed a separation. In Dog Hill, in the final minutes before curfew, no one ever visited the civil defense station to call her name. She always lingered by the shore after the start of the blackout, during which she developed, had it not already been her intrinsic talent, a peculiar capacity. Whenever she wished, she could take a deep breath and become invisible, and no one would find her. At the end of the main street, she hid behind the seawall and sat quietly on the beach facing the sea, beneath the sweeping searchlight of the radar station atop the mountain, where she became so translucent that her shadow had disappeared. In her memory, the island's coastline was perennially illuminated, no matter the time of the night. Even when the moon was shrouded by the clouds and the star out of sight, everything that remained visible continued to emit a distinct glow, as it resentfully discharging the heat it absorbed during the day, simply to establish proof of its existence. When the tide receded, the beach at the end of the main street stretched into the sea, like a corridor of light oriented toward the outlying islands in the distance. On the other side of the bay, the army camp's food waste had been dumped into the ocean, carried away by the tides, and washed up ashore. The freshly rinsed expanse of sand was scattered with rice grains, bone fragments, and meat scraps, glinting under a layer of grease. As the searchlight beam swept across the shore, a rotten stench suddenly arose in the air. Wild rats as large as cats had all gone mad, crawling out from wall caves and sewer tunnels, staring at the front with their tiny blazing eyes, dragging themselves ahead with their short, skinny limbs. They descended onto the sand, traversed the warm, wet beach, ripple the shallow water, and gnaw at the pieces of fruit. And sometimes by accident, also their friends' bodies with their sharp teeth. Even for these rats, her existence was still too inconspicuous to be noticed. Freshly emerged from their caves, jovially galloping along the seawall, those baby rats always bumped into her, as if crashing into a soft, wafting barrier that had yet to take full shape. What was encoded in their genes taught them to be vigilant. Even though they had never seen the day, they still remember the ominous afternoons when eagles and hawks hovered above the island in the hot air. Like every inexperienced escaper before predators, they too were struck with fear to move. Instead, hiding their tails and feet and heads, curling themselves into balls, hoping that they could pass as voters on the ship. She was always amused by their efforts. She offered them a hand, pushing these furry balls away and turning them toward the beach, the corridor of light. The snap of their fingers was enough to summon their attention. Fearfully raising their heads, they saw their peers swimming in the ocean and immediately sprinted down the beach like orphans, their steps unrestrained and blood. They understood that their sole mission in this world was to return to their land of promise to eat, fight, breed, and die. There were no other possibilities. And then it was the end that could not be avoided, the most devastating thing for a child longing to escape. In her gloomiest moments, as she stood alone at where she thought was the end of the world, she would spot her father, taking his time drifting on the distant ocean, slowly making his way to her. Over his shoulder, there was always the corpse of a chicken or a duck, or on rare occasions, a full goat that had yet to be deboned. Even he himself had doomed the appearance of the day. Her father was very tall and skinny, her skin paler than snow. When he was slung over on the counter of his bathhouse, that was also a laundry shop, people would think that he must have climbed out of a coffin moments ago. which must have taken him tremendous effort, and he needed some time to regain his vigor. Only on these rare days, when the sunshine penetrated clouds, did his face seem furrowed. In the morning, after villagers raucously sailed off in the port, he remained and witnessed her make her way to the elementary school, before finally finding his sunglasses in the drawer, putting them on, and leaving the door half shut. Then he dragged his fishing boat out from the storage room, tied it with a rope, nimbly sneaked out through the back door, and, like a floating lamp pulling another rope, hauled the boat to the shore. The moment his boat touched the sea, the moment he heard the noise of his engine, he became at ease. The sky and the ocean had melded into one, a black and white gradient behind his sunglasses, like a night view with overexposed headlights. He steered his boat around the fishing nets in the water, displaying little emotion on his face. He then circled the cape and headed toward the few outlying islands he had adopted, or to put his plainly, his giant rocks on the sea. On one of them, he pastured his goats. On another, he concealed his poultry. And on another island farther away, he buried parts of his liquor. Floating between the rocks, he played house by himself, as if he were still one of them, the descendants of his formidable pirate family. He would not be home until late at night, past curfew, and he would be drunk. But the alcohol never impaired his depth of perception, and he always turned off the engine at the right moment, letting the tides carry his boat back to the island. Standing on his longboat, as if riding on a butter knife, he dodged the searchlights and sliced the path through the beams toward the shore. Behind the sunglasses, he spotted her sitting in the dock. He leapt onto the beach, tugged the boat, and waved at her. "Hey, waiting for me to come home?" he asked. She said nothing and helped him with the work. After they turned to the laundry shop, he stood the boat upright, wiped it dry and clean, and stowed in the storage room, handling it cautiously as if setting it in a coffin. And then he finally lit the kerosene lamp, boiled hot water, and dropped the laundry bags deposited before the door inside, beginning his work of the day, as though he were an elementary school child rushing through his homework at the last minute. She had no choice but to lend him a hand. She looked around the stone house. Before long, the room would be suffused with steam, the same thick mist she had been used to see since childhood. At times like this, her biggest wish was that, sometime in the future, she would forever escape these misty nights. She managed to escape Dog Hill years ago when she went to the city for college. During her first spring break, she joined a few classmates and visited a small town in the east. It was a peaceful town in the mountains, where rice fields and the farms were laden with graves. The summits were steamy with hot springs, and she oak trees stood sentry by the roads, welcoming guests. In this pastoral corner of the island, the township park was the place that resembled a park police. The town's women and men were in great shape and in even better mood. With content smiles on their faces, they tended their farms diligently, planting new seedlings shortly after the harvest. Under the setting sun, the mountainous landscape was serene and carefree. That evening, in her hot spring hotel, she stood on the balcony, gazing at the outdoor springs for eternity. The later the night, the more clamorous the visitors became. She spotted a few little girls wearing skirted swimsuits. They sat on the pool edges timidly, their arms wrapped around their knees, their skirts forlornly undulating in the water. She began to feel inexplicably sorrowful. Before the girls' neatly tied hair, before their shoulder blades clung with water beads, in the midst of vapor and light descending from the sky, a full pool of half-naked visitors were splashing water festively, their ecstasy so frail that it would not even last beyond the night. 2 days later, when she was waiting for her train to depart, it suddenly dawned upon her that this carefree town could afford to be so detached from worldly affairs simply because there were no hospitals. Those who were terribly ill had already taken the train down the mountains. On holidays, their families needed to dress neatly and together visit their sick relatives in the city. And on their way back, they would engage in small talk about the bustling downtown, the pristine hospital buildings, and their family members stranded in hospital beds with highly nibbled foods. They would talk about what had happened in the city as though it were merely a distant dream. That was when she understood, for the first time in her life, that a place with a semblance of paradise would be hell for its inhabitants to perish in. After all, death is insulting, like strangers in paradise. She had long discovered, after leaving her island, after escaping the cursed village of Dog Hill, that no matter where she drifted, she could only regard herself as an imposter in other people's dreams. Awake or asleep, she would forever be a stranger, and that was how her life irreversibly unfolded before her eyes. Whether she liked it or not, after departing downhill, she had become someone with a so-called hometown. Okay, my turn to invite Ahry Jeon. She, to put it simply, she was my first translator friend. We met last June at the Bread Loaf Translators Conference in the woods in Vermont. It was my first ever workshop out of college and had very little idea what I was doing. I brought my Tonga project to Bread Loaf, which happened to be the first project I picked up after college. During the six-day summer camp for translators, Ahry and I were in the same workshop led by Anton Her, and we also swam and kayaked in the lake together. At the end of my workshop, Ahry told me that she would buy my project when it comes out, and I said the same after her workshop. Perhaps she was being polite to me and said it to everyone I heard it, but I certainly didn't say that to everyone. Thanks to Bread Loaf, now I have a colleague whose work I admire and whose success I'm actively rooting for. By the way, please check out Ahry's translation of Bright Night by Korean novelist Choi, featured in the Southern Review this past summer. Okay, Ahry, please.
I will sit. So I actually have an excerpt of a short story, and there is a lot of dialogue in here, so I asked other readers to kind of read those lines along, so that you'll hear from around the room. But this story, not to kind of spoil it for you before I start reading, but it's structured in these little snapshots of like everyday life. So think of it as like diary entries, journal entries. Yeah. Okay, and it's called Love Grafting Hospital by Sang-woo Lim. Ring finger exchange ceremony. Think of a finger as a seed. Once part of your body, it will transform, taking root in your loved one's body and mind. As I sketched 5 fingers on a piece of paper, the couple watched intently. I then drew slashes over the ring finger. The moment you attach your exchanged ring fingers, your bodies will become one. So will your minds. In 5 days, the boundaries between you will fade, and loving the other will mean loving yourself. The couple quietly exchanged glances at my final words.
When is the earliest availability?
The man inquired at last. I checked the monitor and answered. We have an opening on October 25th.
But it's only mid-July.
We have quite a lot of appointments backlogged.
How long does recovery take?
The woman who hadn't spoken a word until then asked.
We're getting married on Christmas Eve.
After a fortnight, you should be able to return to normalcy. Many clients come in as little as a month before their wedding. I smiled. The 2 lovers signed their consent forms. Employee of the Year.
Why haven't you started a cult yet? The couples you consult rush to book appointments like they're under a spell.
Inga mused over lunch from across the table. I have no interest in becoming a cult leader.
Why not?
They work weekends. Inga cast me a pitiful glance before switching the subject, asking if the rumor was true. What rumor?
Allegedly, you have a job offer from a home hospital.
I stuffed my mouth with rolled eggs and said nothing. Rumors fly, I thought to myself.
But have you accepted? Are you jumping ship?
I shook my head at Inga's repeated questions. I'm not. I'll be here for the rest of my life.
We'd be in big trouble without you.
Inga muttered, only then scooping a spoonful of rice. Inga had started last winter as a consultant under me, but it was clear he had chosen the wrong hospital. This place was too uptight for someone like him. The Grafting and Love Grafting Hospital is short for psyche grafting, the process of removing a body part from one person and grafting it to another to imprint one's traits. In theory, any body part could be used for psyche grafting, but at our hospital, we only dealt with fingers. The most popular choices were the ring finger and the pinky. The former, since a ring could easily conceal the surgery scar, and the latter because it had limited functionality, making it a suitable choice. Why cut off a perfectly well-functioning finger? Because you're in love. In 5 days, you will have your soulmate was Love Grafting Hospital's main slogan. The procedure emerged following the development of new memory-enhancing drugs for cells and advanced immunosuppressants, which enabled the fusing of two bodies and minds. In a mere 5 days' time, the lovers' core memories would be shared, and personalities, preferences, and even taste in food could synchronize. We had therefore progressed beyond the days of exchanging rings and reached the era of amputating ring fingers. Ingam, on the other hand, I glanced at him as he fumbled with his chopsticks, struggling to pick up a bean side dish. He was far too naive to sell the surgery convincingly. Couples leaving his office always seemed to have mixed feelings, and it was no surprise that only a few of them ended up making the call. He would be adored by the elderly if he worked at a traditional medicine clinic instead.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Ingam asked, pausing mid-bite as he lifted another spoonful of beans. Nothing.
Anyway, have you seen the news? Post-surgery complaints in the first half of this year alone have tripled compared to last year.
It's probably just that the number of patients tripled too. I replied with an air of indifference, to which Ingam subsequently seemed to agree.
Is that so? Well, you are good at handling crises. You'll be fine, even with the complaints. I'm the problem.
I think so too.
What?
That you're the problem. Call 182 for missing person reports. Had I spoken too carelessly? I quietly reflected on my conversation with Ingam earlier while looking at Kim Ju, who sat primly across the table in the consultation room. Complaints were inevitable with a procedure like ours. Why did the other person's weaknesses persist after surgery? Why had they changed, but their partner remained the same? I had encountered all kinds of grievances, but cases like Eju still unsettled me.
My husband is gone. I woke up last Saturday and noticed he wasn't around.
Eju spoke, her eyes downcast on her left hand. The roughness of her ring finger stood out in her pale, delicate hand. According to her records, she and her husband had undergone the surgery 5 years ago, back when the procedure had just been introduced in Korea. Is he missing? I asked. Caught off guard, Eju nodded her head and stated that the 42-year-old Minchard was very much alive, but the one who went missing was the 37-year-old Minchard who lived inside her. After taking a moment to study myself before responding, I clarified. So, not the real Minchard, but the one who was psyche grafted to you is missing.
Yes, that's right.
She continued, describing how the first couple of years post-surgery felt like a dream. Minchard's spontaneity and sociability had once strained her, yet after she absorbed his traits, she and Minchard argued about nothing. Her lifelong insomnia completely vanished as well.
But just when I thought everything was perfect, Minto had a change of heart.
Eju's voice trembled, but she proceeded without shedding a tear.
He said that he missed the old me, that he wasn't fond of my socializing and disturbing the regularity of his daily life. Our marriage ended then, but I thought the Minto I used to know remained within me even after the divorce.
Eju met my eyes and confessed that she had spent the last 8 months conversing with the grafted version of Minchard.
I would call his name Minto, and he would reply, "What is it?" in his voice inside my head. We talked from the moment I woke up to the moment I fell asleep, but because we were grafted, we had no disagreements or conflicts. Meanwhile, I did nothing like Minto, making private jokes like Minto, wearing mismatched socks like Minto, listening to the radio in the morning like Minto, dreaming about Minto's past like Minto, seeking out people who were grace for us or me like Minto, losing my temper like Minto, and like Minto, even deciding to go on a last-minute trip. Up until last Saturday, I really could.
Did something happen? I asked.
No,
Eju replied.
nothing happened. And that was exactly the problem. I opened my eyes in the morning and felt empty. Even when I called his name, there was no response. The Minto who lived inside me had taken itself somewhere far away, forever. I I had no appetite for jokes, no desire to turn on the radio, and no energy to answer people's calls. I do have a hunch about why he left.
Eju added.
My mom came by last Friday and she and Nito weren't exactly on good terms. I've been indifferent to him while I was speaking with her, and I must have hurt his feelings then. How on earth would I be able to find him?
Eju had tried calling 182, but to no avail. 182?
Yes, the hotline for missing persons. Please,
Eju gripped my right hand and pleaded.
find Nito for me.
A short conversation in the commuter bus.
You should have started a hiking group.
Inga remarked. Nope, I replied. The commuter bus was just as stifling as the air outside, the AC seemingly broken.
How come?
I'm not that good in groups. Inga must have overheard my consultation when he brought the chamomile tea I had asked for to calm Eju.
I remember you recommending hiking to another party. Why are you such an old soul?
I turned to face him, but he avoided my gaze. I had asked Eju 2 questions. How are your knees? Are you healthy with no pre-existing conditions? When she replied positively to both, I recommended she go hiking.
Why do you want me to go hiking when it's not like Nito is there?
Eju whimpered. Hiking is great for boosting compatibility. I beat around the bush and scheduled her next appointment for a week later. Go to bed early, wake up early, exercise in daylight, meditate in nature. All these point toward hiking. Given her state of mind, it's what she needs. I then added, please wake me up when it's time, before shutting my eyes. After a few moments, Engin rang the bell and tapped on my shoulder a couple times.
Someday, see you tomorrow.
New Millennium Workout. Love Grafting Hospital operates weekdays from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a lunch break from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. One unusual perk was that 15 minutes before lunch ended, the speakers on the rooftop would play music for the New Millennium Workout, which was a popular government-recommended calisthenics program. The hospital director organized it to promote employees' health and to boost morale. Engin and I were its exclusive participants. Engin, I took off my ring during the consultation today. I made a comment as I circled my arms.
What about it?
Engin asked, throwing a knife hand strike. I revealed my grafting experience. They didn't think I would understand those who wanted the surgery, so I showed them my finger in the heat of the moment. Then he turned to me in the middle of doing kungang maki.
You've gotten grafted?
I maintained my maki stance and replied, you didn't know? Yeah, I did, 3 years ago.
You said you weren't in a relationship.
Engin didn't seem to be in the mood for exercise, but I kept going with the poses. Fist punch, kick, twist. Then I paused and told him I had the surgery 3 years ago, but I broke up with the person a year later.
How come?
He found someone else. We walked over to the bench and sat down. The speakers continued to blast music with narration to help transition through the poses. Isn't it quite common, losing feelings when you get to know someone to the fullest? I replied.
Someday, are you alright?
It's all in the past. I've been working at the hospital since its opening. At first, it was hard to believe what I was seeing. A middle-aged couple on the brink of divorce, leaving the hospital hand in hand just 5 days after surgery, were newlyweds who had only met a month prior, now perfectly aligned in disposition and taste. But as time passed and I became more familiar with the aftermath of the procedure, I too found myself wanting to be grafted. I longed to see the world through my lover's eyes and absorb all his past and preferences. I became increasingly restless. Getting to know him through conversing or watching and listening to his favorite films or music, it all felt excruciatingly slow. After a year of my persuasion, I finally underwent the procedure, only for my lover to abandon me.
Wasn't it difficult working as a psychiatrist in hospital after the breakup?
Engin asked, inspecting my emotional damage. A bit, around the time my boyfriend left. I endured and eventually it became bearable. I replied earnestly. It had already happened and I didn't want to give up my job. The year before last, a film produced by a famous director and his actor muse who had undergone the psyche grafting surgery swept a gamut of awards. I watched the movie 6 times, and every time the ending credits started rolling, I would wipe away tears and think, It was the wrong choice for me, but the procedure itself wasn't so bad. Bingum, do you have any fears in life? I asked, reversing the role this time. Only the two of us stood on the now quiet roof, with just 3 minutes of lunchtime left.
Getting summoned by the hospital director.
He answered with a blank look on his face. Why?
At this rate, I think I'm going to get laid off. It wouldn't happen, would it?
He added a moment later.
Someday, why don't you answer?
Eju calls. The receptionist put me on the phone, and when I answered, it was Eju. It had been exactly a month since her first visit.
Ma'am, how have you been?
I was relieved to hear her energetic tone. I've been well. How are you? She answered that she was in Cheongju at the moment, and that she called because it would be a trek for her to come in person.
To be frank, I've been extremely busy. I hiked every single day for the past month, except when it rained. I was solely focused on strengthening my grafting compatibility.
At this point, I felt a tinge of guilt.
Then, at last, Winter came back last week.
He did? I asked in surprise.
Yes, I was on a hike and heading down the mountain when I heard Winter's voice inside me. It was undoubtedly him.
What did he say?
The end is the end.
Eju answered. The end is the end?
Yes, the end is the end. That was all he said, but it awoke me from a deep slumber.
Eju said that when she got home, she cried to the extent that all her body water drained from her. Once she accepted the end after 8 months, her emotions she had suppressed viscerally flooded into her. She couldn't tolerate being in her house, doused in memories of winter.
So I'm staying at my sister's place in Cheongju. Don't worry about me too much. I feel lighter now. I'm not just saying that. I've become so much lighter that hiking is a breeze.
I congratulated her with all my heart and hung up. I murmured to myself, the end is the end. Thank you. I don't have like a lengthy intro for Stine. Tony's was too great. I can't one up that. But Stine, I met about a year ago at one of her readings at Molasses. And I was so new to translation that I didn't really know all the publishers and all that, and I probably sounded like a total noob, but I went to go talk to her after the reading, have you talked to this publisher yet? So I was a little embarrassed, but it's been really great getting to know Stine and to spend time with her. We've really talked about everything, what's going on in their lives, all the way through translation, and she's like my big sister to me. And we are going to be leading a workshop at Alta later this year, which is a conference for translators. And I'm beyond excited to do that and to continue our friendship and working relationship going. Stine is a poet, translator, and performer, and this summer she published 2 books, Summer Crush and Today's Morning Vocabulary, which you should check out both.
Thank you, Ahry. Please give it up for the other readers tonight. Give it up for Keisha for organizing Harvest. I love that idea. I think you said you were inspired by a Gwendolyn Brooks poem. Forcefully. I think so. Maybe I'll sit down. I don't know, maybe I'm gonna sit down. My name is Stine, and I'm overdue on the edits for my debut poetry collection. It's coming out next year with Nightboat. I've been working on it since 2018, and so my MFA classmates John and Shantae are here, and so they've kind of seen the early stages of this project. And I want to share with you some pieces from a section that I haven't shared publicly before, in the spirit poetry collection is B Dragon Suite, and it's based on kind of riffing on G Dragon, the frontman of the K-pop group Big Bang. And clap if you know Big Bang. Who's your favorite? Bias? Who's your bias? G-Dragon, okay. So G-Dragon, he apparently, Jeon, that's his real name, he was born 1988, August, either 18, 18 or 8. He has lots of 8 in his, and 88 is like the year of the dragon. And I was born on February 4th, 1989. So according to the lunar calendar, it's kind of this cusp day where it's, so I was told I was a dragon, like very tail end of the dragon year on the lunar calendar. But depending on which lunar calendar you consult, sometimes they'll say that I'm a snake. So I want to play around with this idea of like a shadow dragon or a bee dragon. And this collection, it features a shadow K-pop group called Little Bang, based on the different members of Big Bang. And there's also a K-pop girl group called the Pink Blossoms, that's kind of reflecting on K-pop. And I grew up listening to K-pop in the States, but I didn't really become interested in K-pop as an adult until in grad school. I was walking around very depressed, listening to songs by Big Bang. And a lot of K-pop songs are about love. And then I started interpreting these songs as like, oh, what if these are songs about like a bad boyfriend or abusive boyfriend? I was kind of thinking, is that a way of thinking about diaspora in a way for me? So this is a part where I was trying to figure out how to play through these masks, these different personae, and through this boy band and this girl group. And then at some point, I wanted to explore the concept of descent or catabasis. I still don't know how to say it. Where there's a going into the underworld, and there's a famous folktale in Korean culture about Princess Ahry Ongju, who is sort of the spirit of shamans, and she's like born. She has to go to the underworld to help save people. So this is a part that kind of deals with that part where we're going under. There is this descent, and I'm also kind of incorporating some of my thoughts on the cost of diaspora, the cost of immigration. That's something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, what is the cost of my family moving here to the United States and me trying to make a life here, to be a person? And it's also in conversation with Dante's Inferno, or not Dante's Inferno, Dante's Divine Comedy, because G-Dragon, he had a short album EP come out called Jeon, the Divine Comedy, and so I was inspired by his wordplay and I was really inspired by G-Dragon as an artist, as sort of like a co-eval for me. The section is titled B-Side, Deeper Dives with Princess B, or the Cunty of the abysmal comedy. Money will not be enough, a woman said to her. Not just money, he wants your things, your small things, your emblems, all your trappings. You must give up to the tyrant, all your flowers, all your carnations, or your cut hair. Give him your hair, you must give him your jokes, your best jokes. He takes whatever. And that's from The Descent of Alette, book 1 by Alice Notby. Korean language school in the key of B minor. What is the cost of speaking K? You speak K so that you can stay connected to the K way of life. You speak K so that you can hear your grandparents tell you their stories about the J occupation, the K war, the tragedies of poverty, the unfair vagaries of living and trying to make it in an American neo-colony at home and abroad. You speak K so that learning E is laborious. You don't spend enough time in the American swimming pool to soak it up. E is an argot you pick up in your off hours at the playground, on television, in books,
on the radio. Every Saturday, you attend the K American School of Atlanta. They borrow a dilapidated American high school on the weekends. There they host K language essay writing contests, K spelling bees, K storytelling competitions, and K speech concourse. Being there makes you anxious, but what can you say? You've been told that a K Korean has to speak K. They tried to take our fucking language from us, do you understand? You're gonna give all that up, for what? So you can make friends in school? So you can do well in school? So that you can become a certain American? So that certain Americans won't laugh at you for saying more better instead of just better? So that certain Americans won't laugh at you for reading Mirage out loud as my rage? Thank you. Should I just hold it? Yeah, maybe. I like it. I've worked shot. Okay. Someone, somewhere, something has dictated that speaking standardized South Korean K is essential to being a certain K person. So you go to K language school on Saturdays. Your mother drives you, but if memory serves, it's usually your maternal grandfather whose formal schooling ended with elementary school, who transports you to K language school. He is a lifelong autodidact, years of attending night school while working because he really wanted to be a learned person. Your younger brother doesn't go to K language school because he was diagnosed with autism early, and your immigrant enclave doesn't know how to deal with disability or difference, not yet. You don't know what your brother does on Saturdays, but you know that he doesn't have to go to K language school, not yet. Your father and mother work at the store. Most of your cousins do not go to K language school because there is no K language school nearby, or their parents make them work at the K family store on the weekends. You remember the afternoon your mom took you to take your entrance exam, a test to test how well your parents had managed to keep their tongue intact while hustling to survive as neo-colonial subjects in America. You meet with the principal in the K language school office. You don't remember her name. Wait, her last name is K. Let's call her Dr. K. She looks stern and buttoned up in her bobbed haircut. The office is a temporary trailer in the back parking lot of the K American Association of Greater Atlanta. If memory serves, you take a test. You haven't studied for it. You know that your K is pretty fucking good because that's all you speak at home. When you and your cousins are caught speaking English, your mom makes you bump your heads together. Even to this day, you don't know why she was compelled to do this. Was it to surveil? Was it because to speak in a language your elders don't know is just plain 싸가지 없어? In any case, you grew up speaking K. You speak K at home. Not only do you speak K, but you're getting inculcated into whatever working class but aspirational while also well-behaved and humble and hopeful tread K Catholic family values your parents packed into their carry-ons and shipped over by boat in the late 80s. A hand-embroidered background panel your mom made with her mother's help. Your pink baby blanket, photo albums and school yearbooks, work training certificates, a full set of heavy Korean wooden lacquer armoire with mother-of-pearl inlay with all of the keys attached to plush butterflies and dragonflies tasseled, embroidered, and knotted by hand. The things they will pack and carry with them somehow every single time they move. Your mom once yelled at you for referring to her as you in English, which in K is a big fucking no-no. She thinks that you are being beyond rude to her in English. Your mom is bad at translating English and American culture into K. The onus will be on you to be a better translator for every fucking person in your family for the rest of your life. So you take the test. They're trying to see the class level you should get placed into for your grade and age group. You don't get into the advanced class. The question that fucks you over asks the Korean word for do. You know this word, but on this day, you can't remember it. I know this, you say. My family fucking taught me this word. You look at your mom, you look at the principal, but then again, how many third graders or anyone really spend their time talking about do? Your family does not talk about the morning dew on flowers or leaves on a regular basis. Maybe if you're that kind of K girl whose parents gave her a pretty K language name like Do, like Ise, but not you. Later, you wonder if your K name gives away your class background in Korean. It's a very gendered, feminine Korean name your maternal grandfather put a lot of thought into because you were his first grandchild. He thought carefully about the number of strokes in each one of the 3 Hanja characters of your K name so that your name would be onomatopoeically sound. Because you are in that moment unable to recall the word do, you don't make it into advanced class even if that's where you think you belong. You don't remember if your mom tries to advocate for you. She spent her entire life being told by other K Koreans where she belongs in the nation state, being told what class of K she belongs to. She graduated from a technical commercial high school and dropped out of a distance learning radio college course while she worked as a bank teller in Incheon. Because what good is school when you need to support your parents and you want to send your younger brother to college and buying those Adidas sneakers so his peers don't snub him? Who is she to challenge the principal of the K American School of Atlanta? Fucking Ise. What's in a name? The silver lining of being underestimated is that you do really well in K language school, even if your mom isn't one of the college degree K language school teacher parents and you aren't granted any favors. For example, finding out the essay topics in advance for the essay writing contest. You coast on misery. To be fair, almost no one cares about K language school in the same way that almost no one cares about American school. Correction, no, everyone cares so much about doing well in American school, as if their life depended on doing well. Nevertheless, you crush it in K language school. You hate it so much, you crush it so hard because you need to prove to the principal, to the college-educated Korean language parent teachers, that you and your family are doing just fine. Thank you. At K language school, your classmates worship the trinity of Capri Sun, Crystal Sliders, and Abercrombie and Fitch. You too enjoy the Capri Sun and the Crystal Sliders brought in turns by the class moms. Everyone groans when the designated class mom brings and keep up. But the Abercrombie and Fitch is beyond your family's means, and the models don't really look like you, do they? So you continue to live without the Abercrombie and the Fitch. Years later, when you have no one in your life to speak K to outside of your family members, and you speak in K to the occasional K Korean you meet, they're surprised by how good your K is. Your parents must have raised you well, is the conventional response. Your parents must have raised you well. If memory serves, memory does not serve you well. Bee Dragon's Metamorphosis. Bee Dragon transforms into Princess Bari, Patty, aka Princess Bee, aka Princess Bitch, before descending into the time dark, home dark, dream dark waves. B is for Patty. B is for berry. B is for very, very heavy. Princess Bee sinks so deep into the motherfucking bee ocean. As B streams on the well of wells, we see the plastic instant cup ramen containers that float like jellyfish. In total darkness, B becomes a cocoon of bubbles, of possibility, of profanity, of mobility. To move sideways, to hitch a ride on a raindrop that hits the earth and goes somewhere by way of the gutter. Tears, or is it an otherworldly dew, glitter down B's face. Thank you.
Can we give one last round of applause for all the readers? Thank you so much for coming to the first harvest. The next one is on October 15th, which is also Wednesday at 7 p.m. And feel free to stick around, buy some books, mingle, and I think there might be some snacks. Okay, thank you.
Everybody